My name is Jón Árni. I'm from a company called TripCreator, and I'm going to be talking about travel planning in the digital era. So let's just get started. No reason to wait. So who am I? I am CEO at TripCreator since a year ago, or just over a year ago. I have some background in the startup business. Air 2012-2016, and before that 3 other startups that were acquired. So I think I'm hoping that this will be successful, and I'm pretty sure it will. So what does trip planning in the digital era actually mean? It means that everything that we use in planning trips has to be online. You have to have digital access to the inventory. You have to be able to do availability checks, instant availability checks, and you need to be able to book online. That's what basically the digital era travel planning means. So let's step into the future. I don't know if it's 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but we can think of trip planning in the future as such that we sit in our living rooms with huge screens on our walls. We have a digital assistant. In my case, I'm going to call her Lucy. And I'm going to say, Lucy, I want to go to Paris. I want to stay there 3 nights. I want to drive to Zurich in Switzerland, on to Lyon, and on to Nice. And I want to stay 2 nights in every place. And I like red wine. I like museums. Show me a suggested trip. And Lucy is going to put something up on the wall that shows me a map and shows me my days. And I'm going to say, Lucy, I don't like this hotel. Switch it out for something like a boutique hotel. So I think that's what we're going to see in the future. We're going to see some intelligent planning, and the interface is going to be voice for the most part. We're not there yet. The voice assistant are starting to come online. Siri from Apple and Google is also doing this. But even in the future, these assistants won't know everything. They will be basically the translators between us and the actual applications that we're going to be using. So there has to be a travel planning application out there that Lucy or Siri will talk to for us. So we are already there in some way, creating the travel planning solutions that will advance and later on will be used by our digital assistants. But in the meantime and until then, we're going to have to use a mouse and the keyboard, etc., etc. But we're slowly getting there. So where are we now? Well, most users do this. They go on to Google, they say, what's happening in Paris? They actually use Google Places or Google Maps just to ask what's around where we want to go. They go to global providers like Booking.com to do their accommodation, rentalcars.com or some airline websites to get your rental car. And they basically just Google for points that they want to go to. And they may actually just jot things down into a Word document or Excel or even your day planner. And they may just show up on the site and say, I want to go to the Eiffel Tower, and they have to stand in line for 2.5 hours to get a ticket instead of buying it online. So we want to get a little bit further than this with planning. Let's talk a little bit about the players in this field. It's obviously the traveler themselves. The airlines are a player, and then the travel agencies are also players also. The travelers, I actually think of them at least 3 major types of travelers. You have the traveler that wants to do everything himself or herself. Those are the people that go on the internet and do everything on their own. Even if they have a travel planning solution, they still want to do things on their own. Then you have the travel agency customer. They sort of know what they want, but they don't want to do any of the legwork or the work. So they send an email or they call your travel agency, and somebody that works there might even be called Lucy, and they say, Lucy, I want to go to Paris, etc., etc. And Lucy, instead of being the digital assistant that shows you something instantly, might take 2 days in actually getting back to you with a possible itinerary. So it's the same interface. It just doesn't happen instantly. It just takes 1 or 2 or 3 days with the travel agent. And then you have the combo traveler, who wants to create a trip themselves. They want to feel like they created the trip, but they want the hand-holding and they want the expert advice from a travel agent. And they want to sort of do things on their own, but in the end, they want to say to the travel agents, is this plan that I created, is it good? Is it valid? Is it okay? And the travel agent said yes, and then the customer says, can you book it for me? Because they want to have somebody to call if things go wrong. But at the same time, they can go on their Facebook page after the fact and say, it was my trip, I created it, even though it was sort of through a travel agent. So those are the sort of the three basic types of travelers. And we want a planning solution that helps all of these guys. Now, what's interesting is the last line, and I'll show you a slide that basically shows statistics in the US, and I think this is going to happen all over the world, is that the millennials, the youngest generation that's traveling, and we thought that would be most likely to do everything themselves, they are basically the traveler that is a combo traveler. They sort of know what they want, but they don't want to do the work. And they definitely don't want to do the planning while they are traveling. And research shows that they are increasingly more likely to actually go to a travel agent. So that's an interesting statistics, because everybody thought that travel agencies would go away, but that's not the fact. They just think that their time is more valuable than, and they don't like the fun going on the internet and researching, because they do it all the time. So what are the basic needs? The basic needs are obviously flights, accommodation, transportation, tours and activities, and points of interest. Those are the things that I talked about before when you talk to Lucy, whether it's a digital assistant or somebody at a travel agency. These are the basic things. The bottom line is, though, that everything you do has to fit together in time and space. So if you're on a road trip, you want to make sure you're not driving back and forth. You want the optimum route to maximize your time. You also want the activities that you like to fit into your day. So it has to fit together in a time and space. And somebody actually has to do this. You either do it yourself, your travel agent does it for you, or your travel planning solution. Let's talk a little bit about the airlines. The airline industry is obviously evolving. You used to have only the full service airlines that you sold your ticket and everything was included. And then the low cost airlines show up, they just sell you the seat and they charge you for extra legroom, your luggage, etc., and they push the prices down. But that also means that they need revenue from other places, and they are looking for revenue as commission from hotel accommodation, rental cars, etc., and they all are starting to do this. So what's happening is that the full service airlines are sort of coming into sort of a hybrid existence with the low cost airlines, because everybody is starting to lower their prices for the airline seats, and then they basically say you can get everything from us. Today, most airlines are offering you hotel accommodation, rental cars, and activities, but they're actually pushing you away from their sites. So they're pushing you over to booking.com, they're sending you to rental cars, they're sending you to Viator or somewhere else. So they are somewhat getting commission, but they would obviously like to keep their customers on their site, beef up loyalty and customer retention. So a planning solution for airlines helps them keep their customers. It also gives the airlines the opportunity to know what their customers are doing in between flights. So instead of just having somebody that flies with you to Paris and they come back 10 days later and fly back home, if you're an airline with a planning solution and everything happens on your site, you will actually know what your customer is going to be doing these 10 days. And you may be able to assist them and sort of help them deal with you again. So this is the problem that the airlines are dealing with. The customer basically shows up on their website, they look at flights, they book flights, and then the blue things are basically the flights, and in between there are these gaps that the airline would like to fill up because they want more communication with their customers. That's where the travel planning solution comes in. Let's talk about the travel agencies again. The problem that the travel agencies have in growth is that if you double your growth, you're going to have to increase your staff almost twofold. You're going to have to need more office space. The cost goes up in a linear fashion. So what you need is you need a tool that helps increase the productivity. So you want your travel agent to be able to create 10 trips per hour instead of just 3 trips per hour. And that's where the intelligence of a travel planning solution comes in. You also want your travel agent, local travel agent, not to be suggesting always the same 6 things, which they have done for the past 15 years. You want more breadth. You want your travelers to go all over the place instead of just doing the same things every time they come in. And that's where the planning solution can help the travel agents themselves. So they're also looking for more revenue on online sales, where the customers that actually visit your travel agency are still doing most of the work, even though you get to hold their hand and you get the commission for things sold. And this is basically their problem. If they want to respond very quickly to a customer request, the quality of the itinerary that they create is very low. If they actually want to respond with a detailed, customized itinerary created specifically for that customer, it's going to take them a while. And in some cases, you just send them an email and they answer back in 2 or 3 days. Or they answer back quickly and say, I'll let you know in 2 or 3 days. And so it takes time. Obviously, you want to be in the upper right-hand corner where the quality of the itinerary that you send your customer is great, and you also do it pretty fast. And this is the thing that I talked about, where the scaling actually is linear. So I think, and we think at my company, we think that the travel planning solution is a part of the answer. Obviously, it doesn't resolve everything, but it is definitely a part of the solution. Getting the computers and getting artificial intelligence and suggestions from a system that's been specifically designed to do this is going to help the traveler. It's going to help the airlines getting ancillary revenue and customer retention. And it's also going to help the travel agencies, not only online presence, but also as an in-house tool for the travel experts. So a travel expert that will learn how to use the tool can actually create 50 different templates. And it's very easy to get back to customers quickly with detailed itineraries. And in some cases, you might actually want the customer to take the itinerary and make changes themselves and just return it back to you. The only thing you need to do is to look it over to see if it's okay, and then you book it. So that's what we're looking at here. So what would it look like? It resolves these things that I've been talking about. The common view, the common understanding, you as a travel agent and the customer have the same visual understanding of the trip. It increases productivity of the travel agency staff, and it increases online sales where the customer helps themselves. It has a powerful suggestion algorithm, and that's the thing that I talked about before, where if I've worked at the travel agency for 15 years in a local market, I am bound to suggest always the same things to new travelers. And I'm going to think, oh, they're new travelers, so they're going to want everything that the last one did. Everybody's going to want the same. But in essence, you want actually your local market, you want to expand it. So it's not just this activity and that activity. You want to expand it so there's more things to do and distribute the travelers over a greater area of suppliers, if you will. It has to have availability checks, as I talked about earlier. It has to calculate routing with distances if you're driving. Obviously, it also should be able to help you with just tours in a city. You may be staying in Paris for 10 days, and you might want to walk and take the trains and do all the things that you do there. And that also is transportation, whether it's walking or taking trains or the subway. Intuitive user interface, I talked about it, that in the future we will just talk to our digital assistant. But until then, we are going to be using the mouse and maps and the keyboard but it has to be intuitive. We want to offer single checkout so that once you've created this whole trip that includes accommodation, transportation, points of interest into a planner, you want to offer a single checkout. So you just give your credit card, you click a button, and everything is taken care of. And you get in your email, you get all these travel plans, and you get an itinerary sent to you. But you also want to offer the customer the option of saving your plan, buying only accommodation, and then maybe come back 2 days later and say, now I want to take the rental car. It's still the same plan. So you offer options. So let's see what it looks like. So this is a 4-minute video that I'm going to try to talk over, but I think it's sort of self-explanatory. So you say, I'm going to go to France. I'm going to do this on May 6th. We're going to be 2 traveling. And it pops up with the planner. So you have a map on the right-hand side, and you have a day-by-day planner on the left-hand side. So you basically say, I'm going to stay 3 nights in Paris, type in Zurich, and it auto-completes, and it pops up with the best driving direction. You can also use the mouse to click places on the map where you want to stay. You end up in Nice, and you now have a 9 nights stay, and it tells you how long the drive is. And then when you click on it, the planner goes out, and it goes out, in this case, it goes out to booking.com, but it could be your inventory. It could be Hotels Pro, it could be hotels.com, it could be your inventory as long as you have an API access to the inventory. You can obviously change out the hotels, find new ones, boutique hotels or cheaper ones. And then once you're satisfied with this, you start filling your days with activities. So you basically are now looking for points of interest. You can filter things by price, distance from where you're staying, or difference from the path that you're actually driving. You can also specify things like, I like wining and dining, so it'll filter things out and give you a view of the activities and tours that are available in that area. So there's a mouse over, obviously, that shows you information about everything. In this case, we are hooked up with Viator. Again, the inventory can really be any system that has a decent API XML interface. You select the things that you want to add to your plan. Here in the bottom right-hand corner, there are availability and online checks. So if it's green, it actually fits into your plan, and there's availability. And all this is done live. So now you're zooming in on to the driving distance, and there may be museums, there may be castles that you want to visit, and it pops up, and you can specify whether it's within 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers of the driving distance, and you can specify things to map them into your daily plan. So here you've actually dropped from a timeline into a calendar. So you have things on a visible weekly calendar. You can drag things around. You can change the timing. It does the automatic online check to see if you've done anything that violates what we call the rule of fitting in time and space. You can then share it with your customers or share it with your friends if you're doing this on your own. And in the case of a travel agency, you can specify whether the customer can make changes themselves or if they come back. You get an itinerary day by day, hour by hour, with places that you're going to visit, driving directions. You will also get all the coupons and the tickets sent to you by the supplier of the tours and activities, etc., etc. And here you're actually listing out what you want to buy. You can select to, you can actually select to buy the whole thing now. Or in some cases, you can actually book and pay later. You can, in this planner, you can create trips and save them. So if you're a travel agent, you could create, local travel agent, you can create 50 different trips as a template. So if somebody comes in and says, I'm going to be here for 5 days, I want to go out in the desert, you have 3 different templates. You could select the one, you send it out, it takes you a couple of minutes, and then the customer has something to play with and view. So let's move on to what it could look like. On a website, it can look like this. You just have a simple menu bar at the top. It could look like this on Icelandair, and it will look like this on Icelandair in about 2 weeks. We are going live with Icelandair in the month of May. We are in talks with more airlines, so one day Finnair might have this white label solution. Virgin Atlantic, who knows? And it's important to understand that this is a white label solution. So the travel planning functionality is actually what we deliver as a technology company to the airlines. They can choose what inventory they use. They might be using Booking.com, Viator for tours and activities, and rentalcars.com, but they could be using their own, or they could be using some other providers. We just integrate with these suppliers. So we are basically aggregator of content, but the expertise that we provide is the actual planning and creating of the itinerary and sharing with the customers. So there's no reason why this shouldn't exist with Priceline. Priceline Group owns a lot of companies with a lot of content, and why have just Booking.com just only hotels? Why don't they do more than just hotels? Why not supply your customer with everything that they're looking for, instead of having them go to one site for one thing, another site for the rental cars, and the third one for tours and activities? So in addition to this, and this applies both to airlines, OTAs, anybody that has the solution, the travel agents, you will be collecting a lot of data about the behavior of your customer. Maybe not down to the detail where you know individuals, but you will know, for example, that over time, that a couple in their late 20s that do not have kids, they have a certain travel profile, if you will, which is different from a couple in their late 30s that have 2 young kids. You're going to find out that single males in their early 30s are going to be adding parachute jumping and that kind of stuff to their itinerary, and they're going to be taking out other stuff. So you're going to be learning a lot about your customers, which actually means that over time, people will be fitting into categories, but obviously you want to give them the option of not doing everything that everybody else does, but at least you know sort of where they fit into the customer profile. Now, if you are a travel agent and you have 15 or 20 employees, you also want an admin module where you keep track of your travel agents. So they actually, each and every one logs in, and you will see statistics about here's where you have your trips, the customer trips, and then templates. Your trips would be the ones that you as an agent create. You will also be able to look at the analysis of data, every single trip, the total amount of cost, and how much you're actually making commission on each one. And then obviously you will have an overview into categories, how many cars, how many hotel accommodations, etc., etc. You will know which hotels and what type of hotels are the most popular. You can obviously add users into the system as your travel agents come and go. And obviously you will be able to see which of your travel agents are selling the most. You may have one person that's actually selling 25% of the trips that they sent out, whereas another one is only sending 10%. So you want to look at the data and say, what is the difference between the way these two employees work? And can I help the one that sells less to do more like the other one to sell more? So that sort of completes my presentation. I'm 25 minutes in, so I have 5 minutes for questions. So I'm pretty much there with the time limit. Just to mention, TripCreator has a small booth here next to the Avis car rental, just around the corner, and you're more than welcome to visit and talk. So thank you very much. Any questions?
I am Naeem. Just wanted to know about how many languages basically you're working in.
We currently only support English, but we are in discussions with two different companies that actually will help us do the transition into multilingual. And as I talk about multilingual, I'm going to add to the fact that when I talk about inventories, we are also creating support for multiple inventories where you can have a third party and your own. With respect to languages, we are thinking that later this year we will be starting to move into. We will start probably with the languages in Europe, but we're from Iceland. We started this business about 3 years ago. We've been creating the product and developing it for 3 years. We started our B2B approach early January. So we're fairly new in the game from that sense, but we have a mature product, and we're going to be adding more languages later this year.